One.
Here we go, everyone. So, good morning, good morning, good morning to all of you out there. Welcome to the Unique Programs at Kellogg Community College session. My name is Dr. Tracy Taylor, and I have the auspicious distinction of introducing this awesome team today, my colleagues from Kellogg. And if you'll just oblige me for a moment, I'll share their bios. So we have with us Dr. Dennis Baskin, who earned his PhD degree in educational leadership and policy analysis from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Additionally, he earned both his MBA and BBA's degrees from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. Currently, Dr. Baskin is the Dean of Workforce Development at Kellogg Community College, and in this role, he oversees allied health, business and information technology, public safety education, industrial trades education, nursing, workforce solutions, the Regional Manufacturing Technology Center, and an active patient dental clinic. He has 22 years of experience in higher education. No, which spans from teaching to the deanship. Lastly, Dr. Baskin is a visionary leader who understands how to move his unit forward collaboratively and has made diversity, equity, and inclusion an important consideration under his leadership. Also, this morning, we have with us Dr. Chet Dalski. Dr. Chet Dalski has an array of alphabet soup behind his name, including a PhD, an EMT, and a registered nursing degree. And you'll have to tell me, I'm not sure what the PIC stands for, Dr. Dalski, but you'll have to share that with us. Right
Paramedic
now,
Instructor Coordinator.
Say again?
Paramedic Instructor Coordinator.
Oh, okay. That's new to me. So thank you. Well, Dr. Dalski is the Director of Simulation and Special Projects at Kellogg Community College. In his role, he oversees all the simulation activities within healthcare programs. Currently, he works on grants such as the CC STEP, Perkins grants, new program development, programs such as the Healthcare Pipeline, Manufacturing and Skilled Trades Pipeline, accounting and Kellogg's accounting internship. Dr. Dalski also manages the Calhoun County Medical Control Authority, as well as the KCC to K-12 articulation. Wow, you have as many things on your plate as you do the alphabet soup, Dr. Dalski. Chet founded the EMS program in 1988 at KCC, where he served as the program director for 28 years. Again, no way. And led numerous initiatives, including the first electronic classrooms, first KCC simulation lab, and started a payroll. This was really interesting to me. He started a payroll deduction program that would eventually lead to the college founding of the KCC Foundation. That's very impressive also, Dr. Dalski. And lastly, we have Miss Lisa Larson with us today. Lisa is the program manager for the iAct program at Kellogg Community College. She has been in the field of workforce development for over 25 years, no way, in a variety of roles, including coordination of student programming, oversight of workforce programs, data analysis, and case management. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Social Science and a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling from Michigan State University. Go Green. Lisa has been with Kellogg Community College since 2015, when she was hired to work on a federally funded TAACCCT grant initiative. Again, lots of alphabet soup. The work that was funded by the TAACCCT grant has developed into what is known as the iAct program, which is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. The iAct program is a job training initiative of KCC that prepares students for employment and other credentials in an accelerated time frame. Lisa currently manages all aspects of the iAct programming and coordinates dual enrollment programming for students interested in manufacturing. I am excited to hear this morning's presentation, and so I will turn it over to our great panelists. Thank you so much.
Next slide, please, Dr. Dalski. I'm excited to present today with some colleagues at KCC. When the invite came out about presenting, at first, Dr. Dalski and I says, we don't know if we have anything. And I says, no, we have wonderful, unique programs that meets the goals of the state, Perkins, and the college. Our president, Dr. Adrian Bennings, just solidified our strategic plan. And the foundation of that plan focuses on equity, diversity, and inclusion, which is very much in alignment with the Perkins mandate. I feel that it's important that we share two unique programs at KCC that exceeds the mark. And I asked Dr. Dalski to present today because Dr. Dalski has done a fabulous job on our healthcare pipeline work for a number of years. He's very committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you can see in many of those pictures and photos, you saw a lot of individuals of color. I also would like to say that there was no other person that I could select in the area of healthcare because Dr. Dalski just shepherded a $750,000 simulation upgrade at KCC. He led it. It was approved by our internal leadership, and the Board of Trustees approved it immediately. So Dr. Dalski is very fitting to talk about the great work that he's doing as it connects to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The second individual that I wanted to present is Lisa Larson. Lisa's a very quiet individual, but she's a giant in the work that she's doing. Lisa is leading our iAct program, as aforementioned what the program consists of. The WKKF Foundation awarded us a $3 million grant over 4 years, and Lisa is working very hard to ensure our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. I'd like to give a personal shout out to Lisa for the good work that she's done in the recent hiring of staff members. She was very committed to ensuring that the staff members that work for her are reflective of the population that she's serving. And I'd like to also mention that Lisa was just recently recognized as one of 3 individuals for the Bruin Award, which recognizes the great work that she's doing at KCC. So if you could turn to the next slide, Dr. Dalski, I would like to talk about real briefly before I hand it over to Dr. Dalski and Mrs. Larson, is that the college just engaged in a community engagement, the village tour in the Washington Heights area of Battle Creek. The Washington Heights area is a predominantly African-American community. Our president, Dr. Adrian Bennings, led us on a tour with that community. Pastor McCoy is one of the prominent leaders in that community and showcase all the great work that's going to be happening in that community. And Dr. Adrian Bennings wanted to ensure that our community engagement was on point with various communities in the Battle Creek area in our service area. So now I'll turn it over to Dr. Dalski to showcase the great work that he's been doing. Dr. Dalski?
Okay, well, first off, Dennis doesn't give himself credit either because the $750 or $750,000 grant really was, he shepherded a lot of that as well. And so he deserves kudos and just as a wonderful leader within our institution. One of the things that I want to talk about is the healthcare pipeline project. And as a predecessor to this, we had called it Battle Creek Early Introduction to Health Careers. It really started that way, but it became something more. One of the things that I learned in risk management was that accidents don't just happen. Accidents happen because a lot of conditions come together to create the conditions that are just right for that accident to happen. And it's the same thing with the healthcare pipeline project. This didn't just happen. It happened because a bunch of things uniquely separate came together and formed and created this healthcare pipeline project. We had going on at that particular time, when we were talking about founding this, we saw on the horizon the shortage of paramedics, the shortage of nurses. A lot of the things that were out there were starting to develop. We knew that with the aging of the healthcare people that were currently in occupations, that aging, we knew that we were going to need replacements. The other thing that we were seeing that there wasn't a lot of diversity, at least not that represented the population. So we needed that. That was a problem. We knew that there were high demand, high paying jobs within healthcare, that there were these huge opportunities for people. And the other thing that was happening was we were running healthcare programs here at the college, and we had seats available and people weren't taking those seats. And so we looked at all of these conditions coming together, and then Stryker School of Medicine over in Kalamazoo, they were running a healthcare pipeline project. They had just started it, but they had started it at the high school level. As we were looking at our program, as we were developing it, we partnered with them, except we changed it a little bit. We said, we need to start this earlier. And so we actually started ours in the middle school or junior high, depending upon your school system. We looked at those shortages that were out there, and we said, okay, what we're going to do is we are going to need to provide people into this pipeline. Let's go recruit them starting in 8th grade. So the whole theme of this healthcare pipeline project was, number one, we wanted to expose students to healthcare careers early in their high school, in their junior high career. Start getting them thinking about, gee, I can be this. I could potentially do this. Because many students in junior high or middle school have no idea what they want to do. And in fact, they look at a doctor or a nurse or some of these other professions, and they don't even know what some of these professions are. And they don't even consider them because, I can't do that. So one of the themes within this program was, we recruit from diverse populations. So it doesn't all look like our current workforce, that we start bringing in what looks like our current population, which is a mix of people. And then within that, we reinforce to those individuals that you can do it. Believe in yourself. Believe what you can be. And that is a theme that we come back to over and over and over again in each of our sessions, that they need to know that it's possible. One of the things that happens that we discovered with these students is that they have all kinds of stories of why they can't do this. And those stories are bogus. So what we try to do within this is we also try to expose them to all the community resources that are available. If somebody says, hey, I can't afford to do that, well, there's scholarships out there. And often those scholarships will give you a full ride. So we want to make sure they're aware of that. There's program space out there. KCC has spots available for them. Other programs have spots available for them, and more. So that was one of the important things that we wanted to get across. And those were some of the themes we created. The original first group of students that we recruited were actually from Lakeview schools. We originally wanted to recruit from Battle Creek Public Schools. However, we were unable to get that group because they were working on a different project at the time, and they felt that was stretching them too far. So we went to Lakeview, and because of schools of choice, Lakeview had the highest percentage of minority students that were attending there. We thought that was a good place to start from. Later in the second and beyond years, we added Penfield School System, Harper Creek, and we still have an open invitation for Battle Creek schools. So these are the groups that are coming through. The target audience that we have is we have actually 2 grades that we run this program for. The first grade is the 8th graders, and the 8th graders then attend for the full year program. Then they go back to the high schools. There are 9th grade programs that the high schools did not want us interfering with. So we bring them back to us. The same people who left us as 8th graders come back to us as 10th graders. And that's when we do the second program with them. The first program, which is in 8th grade, is an exposure program. The 10th grade is an enrollment program. We want to get them enrolled. We want to get them signed up and doing their thing. As far as our target audience, obviously socioeconomically disadvantaged students, non-traditional student for healthcare, and essentially people who would not normally consider healthcare as a profession. We want them to re-examine that and choose it and really look at that. So our 8th grade program, what happens is we actually, and in both programs, we have some of the sessions here at KCC. Some of the sessions are done over at Stryker School of Medicine in Kalamazoo. The 8th graders actually start in the fall with 2 sessions at Stryker School of Medicine. They also have 1 session at their home school, which is really an organization schedule, getting them on board, getting them organized, that kind of stuff. And then they come over here and they do 4 sessions, usually starting in January. And what happens is they are once-a-month sessions on a Saturday from 9 to 1. They come in here and basically, and I'll get into what the sessions are in a second, but they do those 4 sessions. They have both a combination of lecture and practical skills. On the 10th grade side, we actually flip this. They do 4 to 5 sessions at Stryker School of Medicine at the beginning, and then they come over here to KCC for the 2 sessions. And actually, I said that wrong. 2 sessions at KCC are at the beginning, and the 4 to 5 are at Stryker School of Medicine. And the reason we do that is because that works with our early and middle college individuals so that they can actually get these folks signed up and enrolled in the future program when they get into 11th grade. The last thing we do is in May or June, and it's varied by the year. We have a celebration session in our Binda Theater in which the students come down. We give them a certificate. They bring their families. We feed them like a real light, continental breakfast, and they actually have pictures like you just saw at the beginning of this presentation. Those pictures with the music and that are actually showing out in the lobby while they're having breakfast. We bring them into the theater, and then the students individually come in and they declare themselves on stage what they're going to do with their life. And it's a pretty empowering presentation if you've ever been there. Very strong. Now, the session itself, what we normally do is when they arrive at our facility, one of the things we do is we feed them. We give them a light snack because for some of these students, they haven't had anything to eat that morning. They're not in a very rich environment sometimes, and they're coming to us. So we actually make sure that their mind is on what they're learning, not on their belly. So we give them something to eat. Then we have each session has a theme to it. So we're looking at like a body system, a theme like cardiovascular or skeletal or something like that. And then with that would be programs associated with it. So for example, if we had skeletal system, you would think radiographer or maybe EMT for doing the fractures or something like that. So we do that. The very first thing that happens is during the time they're having their breakfast, we have a person who is actually a graduate from one of our programs. We try to at least, and they do what's called a day in the life of, and they do a 15 to 20 minute presentation and then answer questions of what it's like to be a paramedic, what it's like to be a nurse, what it's like to be whatever. And that always matches the theme of what we're doing. We've had some pretty cool presentations during that. Then we do an icebreaker, and the Stryker School of Medicine folks do that with them, in which they do a little team building, teamwork thing in groups of 5 or 6, and they compete. And it's just a 5 to 10 minute icebreaker, and it's all kinds of crazy stuff we do there. Then there's some team-based learning, and what that is we actually teach them about the theme that we were talking about. What are we talking about when we talk about the skeletal system? What does that mean? And we give them a little bit of anatomy and physiology on a little bit maybe about injuries and stuff that happen. Then we break them out into practical sessions, and that's where our faculty and staff expose them to a hands-on activity. And then finally, they do a lunch and learn in which we have speakers come in and they talk about financial aid, about all kinds of things that would be barriers, so that we remove those barriers for them. So that's the program in a nutshell. To give you an update on where we're at with the program, I have to go back to March 16th, 2020, where a chain reaction of events occurred. Our program was going solid, well, everything was great. And then that date hit. Governor Whitmer declared a state of emergency in Michigan due to the COVID-19. Everybody knows what that's all about. Basically, it canceled face-to-face instruction. And as a result, because K-12 shut down, our college shut down, Stryker School of Medicine shut down to face-to-face, basically this program got essentially canceled or put on hiatus. And it stayed that way really until this year. And where we're at with it right now is we are just in the process of restarting, but some positive things. We actually have some program graduates from our first 8th grade program that are now enrolled in healthcare programs at the college. And they are people of color. And so that's something I'm very proud of because we are doing what we said we would do. We have 2 new programs that we're slating for January for start. It's not starting as early as we wanted to, but because of all the craziness of COVID, this is the best we could do. The K-12 schools, they are 100% on board. In fact, when we received a message from Stryker that they could do a reduced number of 10th graders, we got a complaint from the superintendent that said, you can't do this to our students. And they demanded to have more seats. So we're working on that. So essentially where we're at is we're continuing where we left off. And that's kind of where we're at. And with that, I am going to hand it over. We'll do questions on this at the end. But what I want to do, and I forgot to end that right. What I want to do is put Lisa on. And Lisa, I will have your slides up in a second here.
Thank you.
Dr. Dalski, while you are getting Lisa set up, there was just a question from the audience that requested a copy of your presentation, and I would agree. I think the work that you just discussed during regarding the healthcare portion of the presentation was phenomenal. I would ask that you share a copy of your presentation with Dr. Ken Flowers. If you don't have Ken's email address, you can get it to me, and I'll make sure that he gets it.
Actually, the presentation has already been shared with him.
Well, fantastic.
He does have it. And in theory, hopefully you can see my screen and you should be able to see Lisa's presentation. And so I'm going to let a real pro take over here.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Again, my name is Lisa Larson. I'm the program manager for the iAct program. I want to point out these pictures before I get started. Oh, oops, if you could, yeah, go back. Thank you. These are real students who we've worked with. Many of them we are still working with. They're furthering their education. So as I get into the presentation, I'll talk more about that. But I know each and every one of these students, and they've done just a fantastic job in the program. Next slide. Oh, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay. So while we're moving to the next slide, I want to tell you what iAct stands for. It stands for Innovative Accelerated Credentialed Training. And that is accelerated training that we provide that ranges anywhere from 6 weeks to 15 weeks. And during that training, individuals are receiving credentials. So that's where we came up with the name. It's catchy and the students can all relate to it. So I will jump into the history of iAct while Dr. Dalski is still looking for getting the PowerPoint up there. So iAct was initially developed back in 2011 and marketed as the EDGE program, which stands for Essential Skills Demanded by Great Employers. This was through a W.K. Kellogg Foundation grant. And I was actually fortunate enough to be a part of this because I spent part of my career working for Michigan Works. So at that point in time, I was with Michigan Works, and I was at this very first meeting and in all of the planning meetings for the EDGE program. So I am very familiar with how this all got started. It was a partnership between KCC, Michigan Works, Goodwill, and Battle Creek Unlimited. And this also focused on accelerated manufacturing and healthcare training. So it was certified nursing assistant training and manufacturing training. And the neat part about the program is foundational skills are embedded into the curriculum. And that would be foundational skills such as professionalism and some of your basic writing and computer and math classes. Another key component that's carried through this history of the iAct program are career coaches who work with the students side by side along the way to help them through the program to address barriers and achieve goals. So that program, it was time limited because it was through a grant. So right around 2013, Kellogg Community College received the TACT grant. That's a federal grant through the Department of Labor. And part of the funding was used to develop and continue this manufacturing training, which is called CAMA, Kellogg Advanced Manufacturing Assembly. We continue to partner with our community partners, Goodwill. We continue to partner with the EDGE program because they were at the tail end of that program. And we embedded those foundational skills in our training. So we still continued with that professionalism and those workplace skills. And then we focused on manufacturing for the TACT grant. Next slide, please. So as that federal grant was wrapping up, the community was very impressed with what was happening. They really liked the program. They loved the students that were coming to them to work in the manufacturing environment. So we worked with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and in 2017, KCC was awarded a $2 million grant to continue the CAMA program and to expand into additional career pathways under the umbrella of iAct. So that's when iAct really got started, when we got this local grant. So we continued to offer CAMA, and then we included our CNA training. We maintained that accelerated model and the career coaching. And some additional enhancements that we weren't able to do under the federal grant is that we included funding for supportive services available to students. We had noticed under the federal grant that was a big barrier to our students, as they needed things like gas money and money for food. They had shut-off notices or evictions, and it was putting up a barrier for them to complete their training and to participate in our classes. So we let the Kellogg Foundation know that, and we were able to get the supportive services funding. So that was a very good enhancement at that point in time. That grant ended in 2020, and now we move to our current grant. So if you could please, next slide, please. So the success, again, everything was so successful, and we were becoming more well-known in the community, and the employers were hearing about it, and our community partners, that we were most recently awarded with a $3 million grant from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, which started in January of 2021. And this is a 4-year grant that goes through December of 2024. We are continuing our partnership with Goodwill, Michigan Works, and an organization called Women's Co-op. And we're continuing the same programming. We've enhanced it yet again, though. We've now expanded into phlebotomy training and retail service industry training. So now we have 4 different pathways that a student can choose from. Another enhancement is we have hired a special populations recruiter, which I'm going to talk about in more detail in a few minutes. We've given laptop computers to each student. Students receive monetary incentives for completing these classes. And they can receive scholarships to continue their training at KCC and go on to get certificates or their associate's degree. Next slide, please. Hopefully you can see this. I know it's a little bit small. This just gives you an overview of what I talked about, just a visual. So you can see the 4 different pathways with the manufacturing, nursing assistant, phlebotomy, and retail service. And the foundational skills are on the bottom. So that's embedded into all of the courses. And then they have their capstone pathway. So the manufacturing, nursing, phlebotomy, and retail service, and they earn a credential. The grant pays for everything. So we pay for state testing. They can earn an OSHA credential, let's see, we got first aid, CPR. So we've got many different credentials that the student can earn throughout this. If you can go to the next slide, please. Then iAct Next Step is the next step in the program when they can go on to further education. So for example, in our nursing assistant program, many of the students go on to the nursing program, or we have someone in the radiography program. We have someone in the medical assistant program. I have someone else I'm meeting with next week who's interested in the PTA program. So there's many different pathways that a student could take after this accelerated training. We can offer them $1,000 per semester for their scholarship for a total of $4,000. So if they pair this up with their financial aid or other scholarships, most, if not all, of their educational costs can be covered. And the reaction when we tell people that, they're so appreciative and thankful and excited to be able to move on to this next step and to be able to get their degree and move into this career pathway. It's great watching them start out from the very beginning and then continue into this iAct Next Step program. They continue to receive their supportive services and their coaching. If it was before we were offering the laptops, they will receive a laptop. So they've got every support that we can think of to be able to help them as they work toward their goals. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the recruitment and the demographics of the students. I mentioned that we hired a special populations recruiter. This person who's doing a fantastic job and really getting out there in the community, he started just a few weeks ago, and I love hearing every day where he's gone to, places I hadn't even thought of. So it's really exciting to see him out there in the community. But he's recruiting individuals from historically underrepresented populations, such as communities of color, justice involved, homeless individuals, unemployed or underemployed, single parents, and then individuals preparing for non-traditional career fields. So he's really getting out there and trying to reach people who might not have seen college as an option before, and bringing them in and introducing them to our different programs to see what they might be interested in and getting them involved in our training. Our iAct cohorts are diverse, and the students support each other in their journey. I can usually tell it takes only a couple days. Definitely by the first week, the class really, they all become friends. They support each other. They give each other rides. They share, snacks and lunches, and they help each other out, share daycare resources. So they really do mesh together. This summer, we had a manufacturing cohort. 4 of the students in the class were homeless. So KCC was able to use this grant funding from the Kellogg Foundation to provide a hot meal for lunch for each day for the students. I know Dr. Dalski had mentioned that they do that for the students he's working with as well, providing food. This helped them because these classes, they go from 8 to 4:30. So it's a full day of learning. And if they don't have the food resources and they're homeless, it's hard to concentrate on the learning. So they were very appreciative. Every day around noon, the hot meals were brought in, and every one of those students thanked KCC for doing that. So that was just a nice part of the program that I wanted to share. Next slide, please. I wanted to highlight one of our graduates. His name is Larry Guy. And Larry, he transitioned back into our community a few years ago after being incarcerated. He signed up for the CAMA program. He heard about it through the community. He enrolled in there, started learning some skills that he hadn't had in a while. He hadn't learned really to use a computer at all. He learned more about interviewing tips and was really interested in the field of manufacturing. He ended up getting a full-time job assembling heating and air conditioning units at Denso Manufacturing, our largest employer in Battle Creek. So I want to just read part of a quote that he said that I thought was meaningful. He said, "To some people, it might seem difficult at first, but stay with it. The classroom experience and the hands-on experience pay off, and they are very beneficial when you get into the workforce. They prepare you and to work in a fast-paced environment." So this training really meant a lot to Larry. I mean, he was here every single day. He had a great attitude. He learned a lot. And then he was able to use that in his job that he got with Denso. And he was at Denso for a full year, and then he moved on to Target Distribution Center. So he took those skills and then moved into a similar but different position in the same field. And we have many stories like that of people who didn't have the skills when they started, and then they learn and they find good jobs after they've been through the program. Next slide, please. And I know Dr. Baskin had shared a little information about these pictures with our community involvement. I just wanted to highlight how we work with the community and we continue to build those relationships. The village, they have many different focuses. So they're going to focus on youth and then the parents, sports, arts, personal growth, education, and industry. And so KCC can fill, some of those different areas, especially the education. So we think it's important to make that connection and make the connection with the parents and the kids too, and getting them interested in our different pathways so that they see KCC as an option and a place to go to work toward their goals as well. All right, next slide. All right, and that's my contact information if you have additional questions. So I'm looking over here to see if there are questions.
So Lisa, we did have a few. There is one question that is asking about the credential that is earned with the retail service program. So would you mind taking that one?
Yep. So what we start with in our accelerated class with iAct is they have the foundational skills, and then they take the principles of retail management course, and that prepares them to go into the next phase of that's one class that leads toward the retail management certificate. So then they would go into the next step program, and they would take additional classes, and then they could earn their certificate in retail management, and then they could continue to go on to get an associate degree.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Linda had two questions, and I actually would like, Linda, if you could go to the upper right-hand corner and ask to share your video and audio. I'm going to let you ask these two questions related to the types of training and everything. So if you do that, then I can let you in so you can speak. All righty, she's there.
Hi, everyone. I had just lost the train of thought of realizing that Chet and Lisa were describing two totally separate programs. And so I had just wondered, with all the training that Lisa did, if you were doing it just for adults or if this was high schoolers getting this, because you mentioned in Chet in the 10th grade that it is a training program that you're doing, and not just not be as differentiated from the 8th grade program, where that one was more of a learning thing. And so then I just wondered about that. Then what are you training in 10th grade? And then is there any link or correlation or anything? Do you see people from the high school? Are you anticipating then that they would go into would that be a feeder for the iAct? Or is there any relationship in that way?
Let me start on that one, and then Lisa can continue, because I think that would be the most sensible. The 8th and 10th grade programs, the best way to describe them, the 8th grade is an exposure program. So the folks from the different middle schools, junior highs, come to us, and we hit them with all the different possibilities in health careers and what's available here at the college, what's available in some other spots as well. And then what happens is they come back to us in 2 years as 10th graders on a Saturday program as well. They continue with that both here and at Stryker School of Medicine, but here our goal is enrollment. We want to get them now engaged. So yes, we expose them to even more, but none of that gives them, I mean, they do get a CPR card at the end, but other than that, nothing else is there. It's meant to get them enrolled so that when they hit their 11th and 12th grades, they're in some type of dual enrollment. They might be at the CACC, they might be here, wherever. Lisa, your turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I do work with adults in the iAct program. So yes, potentially that could be a feeder into this program. And then we would continue to work with them to get into the iAct Next Step program and continue their education to get their degree.
So Linda's, many of those 8th, 9th, 10th graders, some of their parents may be in the iAct program.
That's a great connection too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Group, we have one more question from Kim, and she says, do you guarantee progression into the certificate and degree programs after the completion of the CNA and or the phlebotomy programs?
We offer it to anyone who is interested. So I guess, yeah, I mean, you could call that a guarantee if they pass the course and they want to further into another program to get their certificate or degree. We have enough scholarship money for anyone, who's interested to continue on their education in this program. Mm-hmm.
We've got about 2 minutes left in our session. So if anyone else has any questions, you can either request to share your video. Thank you, Linda. Or you can type your question in the chat. Sandra has said that these are great programs, and I would absolutely agree with you, Sandra.
If I may, we've heard great programs about Lisa Larson that she's overseeing in Dr. Dalski. Dr. Taylor was very kind in her opening comments. We're very pleased that Dr. Taylor has joined KCC. She's a breath of fresh air. She's a breath of sunshine. She's hit the ground running. She's very committed to unique programming. She's committed to diversity, equity, inclusion. So next year, we probably will be showcasing Dr. Taylor's efforts as it relates to business and industry.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Thank you so much for Drs. Baskin and Dalski, and thank you, Mrs. Larson, for your presentation today. It is excellent. I'm so proud to work with this team. I know you guys are all jealous, and you should be, because this is a great group of folks to work with. And so my last reminder before I send you all off to lunch is, don't forget that the President's Council is meeting this afternoon as well at, the President's Forum at 12:30 to 1:45. Usually that session is excellent, and I have no reason to think that it won't be excellent again this year, even in a virtual format. So again, thank you all for your participation. Please be on the lookout for your evaluations of not only each one of the sessions, but the conference. If you like the Trends Conference, I would also encourage you to become a member of the Trends Committee. You can talk with your occupational contact at the college about joining the Trends Committee. We're always looking for other interested individuals to assist us in developing the very best conference. And if you don't want to serve on the committee, but you have some great best practices that you would like to share with your colleagues, I would encourage you to prepare a presentation for next year's conference. It is, as you can see from these great people, it's a whole lot easier than it looks. And so they did a great job, and I want to thank them again. And please consider joining either the Trends Committee or participating as a presenter next year. So with that, I leave you. Thank you again to our presenters, and have a great rest of your day and an awesome weekend.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.